Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to talk about attack and defense. In the last video we mentioned invasions, but now we need to know what do we need to do, or what do we need to know when we invade in order to survive, and what do we need to know in order to attack our opponent's invasions. In this case we need to know attack and defense. In our first example we saw that the biggest area was the top side. So the first thing we wanted to do was to think of battle reduction, but maybe in this case reduction is not good enough and we need to invade. In one of our examples, our invasion was this. So now we need to survive. In this case, we can't make a base. But what is a base? How do we know we can't make a base? Well, actually, that goes into efficient iSpace. So when we go back to Black's wedge on the left side, White started to put pressure on this black stone, and this black stone seems a little weak, so we need to live. In this case, Black decided to make a very efficient base. Now let me explain exactly what a base is. A base is area in order to make eyes, or efficient iSpace. You'll also notice in our third step, it's expand and / reduce iSpace. However, iSpace itself is not necessarily a base, but rather space to make eyes. A base is, again, efficient iSpace. When you're making a base, you want to expand as far as possible and make the space you're surrounding as big as possible. In this case, Black could have played a 2-space jump. One stone can jump over 2 in order to make a base, and you can see Black is surrounding some territory on the side. Well, this is also his base, or the space to make eyes. In the game, however, Black chose to play this attachment. White blocked a corner, Black walked back, White peeped the base, Black went up and jumped. And you can see Black made a much more efficient base than simply playing the 2-space jump. However, for our purposes, the 2-space jump would have also been acceptable. So remember, a base is efficient iSpace. In order to figure out how far we can jump, or how far an efficient base is, we need to think of how many stones we're working with. So for example, if I have one stone, this stone can jump over 2 spaces without getting cut. If I jump 3 spaces, White can simply play in the middle and split these 2 stones apart. Now these 2 stones are a little weak and they will no longer have a base. Therefore, the furthest this one stone can jump without getting cut is over 2 spaces. This is the most efficient and the furthest this one stone can jump. So, for one stone, making a base would be a 2-space jump. For 2 stones, it's actually a 3-space jump. Because if White goes in now, I can simply surround the white stones. Therefore, the furthest I can go with 2 stones is a 3-space jump. 3 stones can jump over 4, and 4 stones or more, which is considered thickness, can jump over 5. So, in order to think about how far an efficient iSpace or a base is, then you need to think, how many stones do I have? If I have 1 stone, then I just simply need to jump over the amount of stones plus 1. So 1 stone plus 1 is 2, so I need to jump over 2 spaces. 2 stones plus 1 is 3, therefore I need to jump over 3 spaces. That's a good simple rule of thumb for making a base. There will be exceptions, and there will be other cases where the base will be slightly different. But for our purposes, this is the simplest and most effective method for making an efficient base. So in the game, Black could have played a 2-space jump in order to make a base here. However, Black played a little bit more effectively and played an attachment in order to change it and make him a little bit bigger of a base. Alright, so back to our invasion. Of course we want to make the base, if we can, as White. However, White doesn't have that 2-space jump. And you may ask, well, if Black takes the corner, I can still jump over 2 right here. The difference is this black stone. Because this black stone's here, the very next move is going to be a touching move. Remember, touching moves are good for whoever was there first. In this case, black was here first, so black will very easily surround white in this very nice shape, and white will be very cramped and very inefficient. Therefore, this is not a base. If your two-space jump is going to touch a stone, or if it's going to create this type of shoulder hit underneath, then it will be good for your opponent in most cases. So normally we would jump 1, and then our opponent will block, and then we can run away. If our opponent tries to surround, then we can simply make some eye space on the side. So let's go through what's going through each player's head in this area. So now it's black's turn. You want to attack. Well, the first thing to do is to take the base. However, white doesn't really have a base, so why don't I just surround? But there's really good eye space in the corner. So the corner might not be the two-space jump, but it does have a lot of eye space and a lot of territory. It's also black space, because if I keep surrounding, and we play this way, and later in the game, black gets cut with some type of move, well, black space is really small compared to if he had just blocked the corner. You can see the territorial difference is quite large. So here, black said, I'm going to take your eye space and keep my territory as well as my base. Alright, so white wants to try and get eyes as quickly as possible, so he threatens the slide on the other side. A jump would also be acceptable here. Here, white is threatening black space again. If I try to surround, I can slide under, and these stones don't have a base. It's more important to keep our own base because we do not want to attack with weakness. If we try to attack and we aren't alive and we have a lot of weakness, then our opponent can very easily counterattack. So remember, don't attack with weakness. Fix yourself first and then you can attack later. So black fixed, kept his base. Either of these moves are okay. And then white now can't make a base or make eyes anymore, so he has to consult the steps. Can I make a base? No. Then step 2 is to run away. So white runs. In this case, you want to run as far as you can, as fast as you can, without getting cut. So make sure, again, when you run, do not get cut. If you get cut, then that's not a run. That's just going to be a very loose shape that'll give you 2 weak groups. If it was black's turn and white ignored, then black would want to surround, for example, like so, and surround the group as effectively as possible. Sometimes there's multiple ways to go about attack and defense, so maybe one move isn't correct in some scenarios, but the idea is what's important here. Make sure that you're consulting these steps for attack and defense. This will save you 80 or 90% of the time. In various cases, when you get to higher level, you'll find that some local moves or some Tsuji or skillful tactical plays in a local situation will save you rather than just the basics. This requires very good reading, very good understanding of what's going on, making sure you keep track of what your goals are, and understanding the position 100%. Therefore, these basics will save you 80 or 90% of the time, but when you get to a very high level, you will need to consult the Tsujis or the tactical plays in order to get those last 10% and make all your moves as effective as possible. Alright, let's go over the last 2 steps. In this example, white wants to stop black's Shimari extension. In this case, we can simply play a wedge on our opponent's side. So again, this is actually going to be a base type of concept, because when black plays here, we need to make a base. If black plays the other side, what should our move be? It's actually the same concept, 2-space jump. What happens when our opponent gets in a situation where they mess it up? What happens when they go in the 3-3 Remember, the 3-3 is the 3-3 invasion. What happens when they do this and they play the variation wrong, or they end up in a very bad situation? How do you attack? How do you proceed? How do you take advantage of this? Well, we get into our third and fourth steps, which is expand/reduce ice space, and then the vital point. If you're white, you want to expand the ice space as much as possible in order to live. For example, if I was white, I would try to expand my ice space in order to make life in this area. If I was black, I would try to reduce the ice space and then get my profit. And if white happens to die, then I can play the vital point. However, when you're attacking, you do not want to try to kill. This is very, very, very bad to do unless you 100% know you can kill. If you're attacking, you really want to go for profit. You always want that profit more than trying to kill. Because if they die, of course it's good for you. It's almost game over probably. But what if they live? You need to have a plan B. Killing is very, very difficult. And in many cases, trying to kill will put you in a very bad position. So, you can only try to kill if you are 100% sure that this group, no matter what variation is going to be played, will die. If you are not 100% and you cannot read every single move out, then just go for profit. Don't try to kill. In this case, we just want the profit, and that can be some local points. So just reducing ice space, for example here, white tries to live. I'm going to simply reduce. And you can see that black already got some local points. This is already good enough for black. However, now I can see after reducing that this shape is something I know. This shape I can 100% kill. And now I can play the vital point. And now this entire white group is dead, and black has a very big corner. So these are the last two steps. Most of the time, the expand or reduce is just your local profit. Expanding will help you live very small, but you'll live. Reducing will get your local profit. And vital point is usually only if you're living, you'll get to the vital point and just live. 80 or 90% of the time, the vital point will not be played by the attacker just because it's very, very hard to kill. If the attacker ends up at the vital point, you really need to be careful. Because are you sure that this group is going to die? If you are, then great, kill it. If you're not, then make sure you don't have any weakness on the outside first before you go for that vital point. Because if you have even the slightest of weaknesses, they might come back to bite you and destroy your entire position. It's very dangerous to try to kill. However, I want to point out that if you can, and if you see it 100%, then go for it. Killing, of course, is good for you if you can do it. Just be very, very cautious. The last thing I want to point out, when killing or when playing the vital point, try to consider, is your opponent sacrificing this group for something larger? This is not something you'll encounter for a while, but I want you to have that thought in your head because eventually you will get to the level where your opponent might sacrifice a group in order to gain something very large elsewhere. So if you see a group die, think of one of two things. One, am I completely okay? Can I kill this group? Do I have any weaknesses first? Two, did my opponent just sacrifice this group? Or did they make a mistake and I ended up killing them? If they sacrificed, then likely they're going to get something somewhere else. Is this worth playing right now? Or should I go kill that, or go get the other territorial move? So those are the two things to think about. However, this is a high level concept. I just want you to keep it in mind just in case. But most of the time, it will not even end up at this step. So, to review, when you are trying to live, make a base first. If you can make a base, it's very easy. If your opponent is trying to live, take the base. Then you want to run away if you're weak. If you can't make efficient ice space, run away. If your opponent is under attack and they are not alive, they don't have a base, then in order to make profit, and this is the most common step for attackers, the most common step you'll be in is the attack where they don't have a base and you need to surround and gain profit. And then the last 2 steps is expand or reduce the ice space, make it as big as possible in order to live, and make it as small as possible to take your local profit. And then the vital point. All right, so these are a little confusing, but they're very important to master. So make sure you're thinking about these when you're trying to attack or when you're trying to live. Make sure you think about these 4 steps. At higher levels, sometimes you can combine multiple steps, but make sure you're giving priority to the order. You want to live first before you try to attack with a surround. An example of this, I want to make a base, so I can do it by surrounding my opponent or attacking my opponent in a counterattack strategy, but my priority will be make a base. At higher levels, you can combine steps. You may see higher level players do those. But remember, the priorities are first live, make the base, and then run, and then expand the ice space, and then vital point. Master these concepts, and you will theoretically master attack and defense basics. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.